You started a podcast called The Failure Podcast.
Yeah, I did.
It no longer exists.
It's a failure.
Do you feel like it's a failure?
Oh man, dude, one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life.
Why'd you end it?
I ended the show. I mean, truthfully, I think I'm taking on way too much right now. That show is consuming. I was just spending probably 50 to 60 hours a week editing. I have 3 coffee shops, and trying to be a father and do everything in between that is very difficult. I mean, I did it for 2 years straight. I edited every piece of content myself. I put in my 10,000 hours to learn and grow. What I learned throughout the show of talking to all of these people is that we should run through discomfort. We should be embracing discomfort. Along that journey, I went through a lot of things. Quitting the show, as odd as it sounds, and not continuing production of it, of something that I poured my life into, has been very freeing because I'm able to sit in the uncomfortableness and go, this is how it's supposed to feel right now.
Hey y'all, Josh Tomioni with the Derelict Podcast. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Would you do me a favor? It will only take you a couple seconds. Whether you're listening or watching right now, will you head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button? It really helps us get this message to more and more people that we can help. Greatly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
What's up, derelicts? Josh here. We got another good episode for you. My friend Austin Slagle.
Dude, you had it.
Did I do it wrong?
You know,
I almost did that wrong, didn't I?
It's phenomenal. It's perfect.
It's here again. We actually did an episode, God, what was that, like 6 months ago or so?
Yeah, 6
in
months.
your studio. Mm-hmm. You get to be in my studio today.
You have a beautiful studio.
Yeah. We changed location today, which I thought would be fun because we're in my front room. And I told you this a little bit earlier, where this is one of the places this podcast started. Me and my buddy that started the podcast together actually recorded, I think, maybe our first social media clip ever on this couch, talking about how to parent like Dahmer. So if anyone hasn't seen that, go watch it, because it's not as inappropriate as it sounds, but it's still pretty funny. So anyway, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, bro. I'm happy to be here. And thank you. Thanks for inviting me into your home.
Yeah.
And your studio is beautiful.
Thank you. I really wanted to have you because of the fact that you just went through some transitions in your life, including shutting down your podcast called The Failure Podcast. We'll talk about whether you see that as a failure or not, and whether that's ironic or not. And you're really good at interviewing people, asking people questions. Even when we did a joint podcast, I felt like I was talking more than you were because you're just so good at listening. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to actually share part of your story.
Oh, dude, I'm super grateful, and I'm really excited for the opportunity to tell my story. Because I've been sitting on the opposite end of the camera for a long time. So, and like you said, even in our episode, it was like I just, in my space, I have the zone to be interviewing people, and it's what I'm used to. So,
and it's part of the reason you offered to have me at your studio, and I was like, how about you come to my home? Maybe I could get you in a different environment. So
bro, for sure.
Feel.
Yeah.
And you've actually been like really calm and like chill and just like good. And I don't know if that's just where you're at in your life right now, or if it's because you don't have 8,000 things to deal with in the coffee shop, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. No, you hit it all on the dot.
Sweet. Let's dive in.
All right, bro.
There's a group of dads that we all basically got divorced around the same time. Mm-hmm. And we usually go somewhere with our kids every year.
Yeah.
Camping or a trip or whatever.
It's so awesome.
It's awesome. It's been, I want to know, we either started in 2019 or 2020. So we've been doing it for several years now. And the group has changed, definitely. But the only reason I'm telling you that story is that I used to be the guy that brought my own hand grinder with beans and like my AeroPress, pour over my beans and everything else. And then everybody would be like, can I have some? I'm like, do you want to grind it?
Yeah, do you know what this takes, bro? Sitting there for 5 hours going like this.
It's like, dude, you have the biggest forearms ever after that.
If you don't have a freaking, like a good grinder, you're going to sit there for like 30 minutes grinding that shit. It's terrible. I didn't realize this until I got one recently. My buddy, when I was doing one of my fasts recently, he brought it over and he was like, hey, I'm going to bring you something. I'm bringing you a gift. I didn't even have a pour over. And he's big light roast guy, want to know everything about the meticulous sides of coffee, and it's kind of funny saying that I'm as somebody who owns coffee shops. That's not the type of guy that I am.
It's fine.
But I mean, I enjoy the flavoring of coffee. Anyway, he brings it over and it comes with this super cheap grinder, bro. And we're in my kitchen just like wrenching this thing for like 45 fucking minutes trying to get it to grind the beans. And it was not having it. So we made it work, but it was a good muscle or two later.
I like a good cup of coffee, but I would not call myself a sommelier of coffee or whatever the word is for coffee.
Yeah.
Like I have, so a client of mine he sold it, but he used to own a coffee roastery and company in Portland that now has multiple locations. And some of the best beans I've ever had. Really, really good. Roseline. Have you heard of the company?
I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, they're great. But he, back in his early days, used to just have this little teeny roastery, and he would always have me over to do like sippings with
That's actually really cool.
His master person that did everything.
Yeah.
And, like he would explain all these things to me. I was like, that's good coffee. That's good coffee. But I don't know if I could go beyond that. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. Right. But I don't know what words.
Why does it taste so good? What is it doing? Yeah, there's a lot to it, dude. We have this coffee roaster up in where we get our coffee from is Delano's. It's a company out in Sumner.
Okay.
Great people.
Wait, where's Sumner?
Sumner's just south of Seattle.
Okay.
It's like an hour and a half north.
Okay.
Anyway, they do these little coffee taste testing things where we go in and they'll let us taste all different kinds of roasts to see what we want to bring into our customers, right? Mm-hmm. And then we private label it and do that whole thing. But dude, every time I go up there, I'm insanely surprised at the meticulousness that and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean when you say, they're like, well, this one has notes of blackberry or whatever.
Floral and cinnamon.
I'm going, and the fun, I'm like,
asphalt, and they'll say things like that. And you're like, cement? Like,
they have
how do you know, like,
flavor.
When was the last time you tried cement?
Well, I think that's funny, dude, because
like, was that when you were in the gang and you like your head was against the curb and like, was that
you're
the
like,
last time you had cement?
Licking this. I mean, I've licked cement before. I can't say I haven't. Haven't you when you were a kid
last summer?
Come on. No, I'm
not lying. Of course I've had cement. Who hasn't? I mean,
no, hold on.
Why?
I have I can remember specifically as a kid. That's so funny. Like the gray cold like sidewalks. Like
as opposed to
no.
As opposed to what?
I don't know why I'm saying not gray, but anyway, like I remember it's summertime, dark gray, heavy rocky kind of gray. Okay. I remember sticking my tongue on there when it was hot, and just because, and like watching it change the colors of your tongue. I have a vivid memory of that now that we're talking about this. That's actually really weird.
Oh, so I don't remember ever doing that.
Yeah. I was a weird kid though.
Did you grow up here?
Yeah.
Like where? Near, like really close here?
Salmon Creek. Salmon Creek. I actually grew up from childhood birth till probably about 10 years old. I lived two places. My parents were divorced when I was 2.
Oh. Okay.
And so I lived in Vancouver, Orchards area, and then on the weekends I'd go to my dad's, and that was in Salmon Creek. But both my parents moved probably 10 times before I hit high school.
Wow.
Like a lot. Yeah. I remember I lived in a trailer one time with my dad when he was going through his second divorce, this disgusting fucking shit trailer, bro. Like I could not fathom what type of place my dad was in. Looking back on that now at my point as an adult. Wow. And I have almost blacked this moment out.
Can you imagine having your kids in that?
Bro, no.
How old were you?
I was probably 6, between 6 and 10, somewhere in that realm. I don't know the exact age.
Okay.
But this thing was
close to your kids' age. So could you imagine having your kids?
No, I couldn't. It was raggedy, dude. Like I remember my room was like a closet, and I had a bed, and then I had one of those really, really small TVs. It was like a chrome red, and they had just came out when TVs became like a thing. It was tiny, like 12-inch, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember I stuck that thing up there, and it was just this crazy tiny trailer. Anyway, I lived there. Bro, we moved to Arizona like twice. My mom moved to Illinois when I was like 14. tried pulling us there. Like they were everywhere. So I grew up here, but in a billion different places, it feels like.
How many friends did you know that were divorced? Did you have a lot of, like, growing up, other kids, friends?
Not really. No. Like, it's maybe a few, but I've had great step parents, you know, like I had a lot of great step parents. I had, I say a lot, 2 wonderful, amazing step parents. So it didn't feel weird to me because both my parents after their divorces had got with people that they were still with till I was, I think, when my mom moved to Illinois when I was like 14.
Pretty recently after they got divorced?
Yeah, like right like that.
So you don't even probably remember?
No, I was 2 when they got divorced. So I don't remember my parents ever being together. All I remember is having split families, grew up on that. And both my step parents my mom got divorced again and has been with probably 3-4 men since then. But this one man she stayed with, Jason is his name. Jason was my second dad per se till now, bro. Like when I moved out, when I was 18, I moved in with him.
Oh,
because he was
that close.
He was still single, never remarried, still hasn't. And, is just an amazing role model of a man. He was, my mom did him pretty bad from what I know now as an adult. But he's he comes over to my house for Christmas, and my sister, I have a half sister who is his daughter, so that's how we kind of stay rekindled. And I mean, I couldn't. It's really, really cool relationship that we have. I'm super grateful for it. Yeah.
Not everybody has that, obviously.
No.
Growing up in a divorce house.
No, but to answer your question, no, I didn't have many friends growing up. Sorry, who were divorced.
Yeah.
All my friends usually had together families.
Looking back on it now, I mean, you've been married with the same woman, with the same kids.
Yeah.
I don't know, does it bring anything up about you growing up in a divorced house? Did it feel like maybe not as divorced because you had step parents?
I think I hold a much higher standard to myself now to make my marriage work because I don't know that. Well, one, I truly couldn't picture my life in any other way. Like I love my wife. I got very lucky and I picked the one, I believe. We've been married, my marriage is not perfect by any means, but, what I've been through over the past few years with this woman, bro, like I'm dying next to her. Like there's nothing we can't get through. Like
That's
we've
awesome.
been through fucking hell so many times. And that's like, to come out on the other end is unimaginable. But, growing up, the divorce thing was never a big problem for me. And maybe it was because I was so young. I could definitely see how it could play into how I ended up as later on in my life, how I kind of analyze my relationships and who I choose to be family and not family.
How so?
Well, just because people come in and out of your life, and as a kid, you don't realize what's happening, you'd build relationships and those relationships maybe fizzle and go away. And that can be hard. But I think as an adult, it made it for some reason a little bit easier for me to let those relationships go with people who are super close to you. So
because you're used to it?
Yeah.
Just because
Sure.
There's always
I mean, if I'm over analyzing it, that's the way that my brain would go. I don't think about that on a day-to-day basis. I don't act upon that as if like, wow, my parents are divorced when I was a kid. Every relationship I have is blah. People. I don't ever. But in this subject of the question that you're asking me, that's where my brain would track. Is maybe that's why, because I am that way for sure.
No, that makes sense to me. I've actually, I don't know if I've ever thought this, but so both of my parents were divorced when they met each other. But they've always been together since I've been here.
Right.
So they got married before. And then the other thing about my parents that I've noticed is that historically they've had a couple of friends each that was kind of like their main friends. They didn't have a big group. Like my dad's a very extroverted, outgoing person, but they had a very small, like my dad had 2 best friends. My mom had 1 best friend, and you were very aware of who that was. And it was like a huge deal if something happened with that relationship, etc.
Sure.
And I guess the reason I'm only saying any of that is that I think what it did to me is the opposite maybe of what it did to you, where I think it's been harder for me having a relationship transition because what I saw growing up was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Like you stay together with your friends, you stay together with your spouse, you stay together with everybody,
Yeah.
you figure it out, you make it work, which I think is healthy to a degree as far as like wanting to stay faithful to people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super unhealthy when a relationship needs to naturally transition and I cling on to it.
Sure.
So I think that's really fascinating because I
Yeah.
wonder if that just makes it easier for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
No, I think it does, bro. I think I don't know that I wouldn't say easy is the right word. No, losing a friendship or a relationship with anyone is hard.
More normal?
But yeah, maybe it feels a bit less. It feels more recognizable. Like, what's the word? Not abnormal.
Familiar.
Familiar. That's the word. Thank you. Feels more familiar. Yeah, dude. Relationships are great. I don't ever want to not have relationships. I think, but to your point, that's an interesting observation.
Well, and to your point, so you could get bitter and resentful about it as well.
Yeah.
Right? And be like, oh yeah, that person pissed me off. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't sound like it. Like what it did is you still have a deep desire for those relationships.
I do. I think I value them.
Change.
Well, I mean, specifically my marriage. I value raising my kids to not have to see what a divorced family looks like, because it was real unhealthy, bro. Like my parents divorced, even though they remarried, they hated each other. And there's so many times I remember just like listening to this person bitch about this person and this person, not specifically like, I'll never talk bad about your mom, but this person did this, or this person, I just don't understand. It's like you're implying so many negative things when you do that. You can't even go there, bro. And it's hard to do when you have so much true, genuine hurt and pain for somebody. You know what I mean? When your ex-wife or your ex-husband is doing what you think is something out of spite, and not what's best for your children, right? Because that's what we want. We want what's best for our kids. But it's real hard to separate your being, I think, and it was for my parents, for their being and their, values as what they believe from what's right for the child.
Now, speaking as a divorced man, I would add something to that as well, where it's, I've definitely been in that situation, first of all, so I'm going to raise my hand before it sounds like I haven't been there, where I've been guilty. I try my best not to speak negatively about my kid's mom.
It's hard.
So there's a couple layers of this, which, the first layer is don't speak negatively about your kid's mom at all.
Yeah.
The second layer is easier for most people, and that's not in front of your kids. And then third layer is, don't be super evil about your ex towards your kids and lie about them, right? So there's different layers of what you can do. But so I've definitely been the person that has spoken out of hurt. I've tried not to, but I've definitely done it. But the other thing that I would add to that, though, in front of the kids that I continue to struggle with as my kids get older is how do I speak truth about what's happening without being negative towards their mom?
Right, because you don't want lies to be told about you or the situation that are not true. Like that's not fair.
Or let me give you an example where I got caught the other day. So kids were at my house. Mom was coming to pick them up. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into it, but
sure.
She was parked in front of my driveway, which I've asked her not to do before. It became a big thing because of some other things that happened, which again, the details don't matter. So I literally went to my front door and just took a quick picture of it. Just so I have it, because sometimes when you're divorced, you just have to keep track of everything, especially if you have somebody that's...
I remember this part, 100%.
Kind of trying to come after you all the time.
Keep those records, brother.
My son was in his room. My girls were in his room. I took the picture. I came out. My son had come out of his room. He's like, "What you doing?" Now, my son's 12. So he's not, and he's very intelligent as well. And I was like, nothing. And that's what I said. So I flat out lied to my son.
Yeah.
But in that moment, what am I going to say? Right? He's like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay. I was taking a picture because I've asked mommy not to park in front of my driveway before." And she parked in front of my driveway.
Yeah.
And even after I said that, I was like, was that the right thing to say? Like, do I lie to my son? Do I tell him that I'm doing something else? Do I say it like that? Now, I didn't go into details with him about like all the drama that was caused beforehand when that happened. But it's moments like that that are really difficult for me because I'm like, well, I want to be honest with my son, but I don't want to share all the information. I don't want to overindulge. I don't want to make his mom seem like a terrible person. So in that moment, it seemed like the easiest thing to do all those things is what I said.
Sure.
Like, I was honest. I was truthful. I didn't say, "Your mom's a bitch." Like, I just said, I asked her not to, so I took a picture. So I don't know. I don't know if that was the right thing or not.
I think whatever you did in the moment is the right thing. I don't think, because you can't go back and I think you did what was right for the moment. I also, if I can give my opinion,
I think everybody does what's right in the moment given the information that they have.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And going back and having shame over it or anything, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to give you an example of like one of those situations where it's like, okay, how much honesty do I do here? How much do I not?
Yeah. No, I think that's a. You have conversations with him about how hard this is for you to leave somebody that you love and to be in this position. Do you tell him that?
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I didn't leave her. So
what I mean, how hard it is to be separated from somebody that you love.
I try to be honest with my emotions about what's happening.
Yeah.
Without denigrating the other person as best as I can.
Dude, that's so tough. I really could not. I couldn't fathom that. And I mean, I'm trying to analyze the situation of how I would feel, but I would feel trapped, very trapped.
Well, yeah, like as an example, he stayed home for a while the other day by himself. And we have a phone for the house. I gave him the phone. This is the longest he's stayed home before.
Yep.
I was taking my girls to a daddy-daughter dance. I was originally going to have him go with a friend. It didn't end up working out with anybody. So eventually I was like, okay, I trust you. Here's the parameters. Here's the things.
Sure.
I checked in with a couple neighbors. They're here, like people that I know super well and would trust with my life. So like everything seems okay, right? We live in a very safe neighborhood. I have a neighbor that's nearby. He's 12 years old. Like all of these things make sense. And he did a great job. Then he's going to go home and he's going to get an earful from mom about whether that's appropriate or not. And it's those moments too where I'm like, okay, well, how much? Here's the I think the really difficult thing about what you brought up earlier about being divorced, and maybe you've experienced this as well, is that you gotta let kids of divorce have their own relationship with their parents. And I try to do that as much as possible. I try to make sure that they're open to talk to her whenever they want, that I speak well of her. I purposefully do it in front of them just to make sure that and I say honest things, right? Like my youngest the other day we were talking about love and somehow she's like, well, yeah, like you love mommy.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I respond to that?
Right.
So I was like, I do love mommy. I love mommy as she's your mom.
Right.
Right. But it's a different kind of love than the love I have for, and I was talking about like my girlfriend at the time, than the love that I have for her. It's different than the love that I have for you. Right. But I don't know. I'm not trying to make myself look good right now. I just I try to do as much of that as possible, but man, it's hard.
Well, I think that, no, it's an amazing point. And I don't think that you're coming off as if you're gloating either or trying to make yourself look any way. I think that that's a very honest situation, and what a good example of, bro, just like a situation where you're backed in a corner with somebody that you love and you care about, being your child, you know? Like, I can't think of any other way that, you know, I have this, my personal opinion is I sometimes hide the truth. I am not forthcoming with every single detail. Because it doesn't mean that I'm not going to express that. I just think that there's a time and a place for every, maybe to not say certain things or to say certain things.
So I would agree with you. I don't necessarily call that truth, though. So this is a distinction I make sometimes. There's a difference between truth and privacy and how much you're sharing.
Sure.
So as an example, my kids are still pretty young. So do I share with them all the details of what happened in the divorce and all the nastiness
Probably
that's
not.
like adult? Absolutely not. Not even close.
Right.
Will I one day, if they come to me and they're 20 years old and they're like, what really happened? I'll have to decide at that point. But that decision is going to be a lot different than when they're 7.
You know, I just think that kids are much more smart than we think they are as well. So I think that even when we tried to not try to hide those things, like you had just stated, you know, your son's a smart, intellectual kid he's not stupid. He knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at that point, what's the loss there?
Well, that's honestly why I was honest with him at that point, because I'm like, what am I going to do? Lie?
Yeah. Because then you just think
that's a worse situation.
Right.
Now my son thinks I'm a liar.
And you lack trust at that point.
Right.
Right. So he can either hate you for being honest.
But did you notice that was my knee-jerk response? My knee-jerk response was like,
yeah, that was probably really hard.
Well, I'm curious. So I don't know how long ago it was. You interviewed your dad.
Yeah.
On your old podcast, which we'll get to here in a little bit.
Right.
But when was that? 6 months ago?
Yeah, probably.
What did that bring up?
So many things. So much anger. I didn't even know I had it.
In the moment?
In the moment, bro. And my
dude.
father, in that specific podcast. So, quick context. I rewatched the show. I've seen rewatched clips that I've put out. And I actually I'm embarrassed with some of the things that I said and how I said them. Because, like, all it did was close an emotional door that I don't know. Like, I just felt like looking back in the moment, I didn't think I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I didn't think that I wanted to make you look like an asshole for doing that to me, but that's what I was doing. Like, my subconscious, I think in that moment, was like, have the conversation, ask the hard questions. And I did ask hard questions, really hard questions, that not many men would probably ever ask their fathers. And I look back on that moment and I probably would have chose to done it in private, because I feel like I made him out to be somebody that he's not. And as a father, that's not fair. So, yeah, it did bring up a lot of childhood questions. Most of them came from my mother, though. My mother is the real problem that I've had, and that was where most of my anger was from her. But I took that anger out on him. And as I'm 31, 32 years old at the moment, having this conversation with my 50-some-year-old father. Like, I'm not a kid, right? We're men. We could talk about shit, right? But there's just a certain line where I was like, fuck, man, I'm like backing this guy into a corner. And make an example of a question was, I asked him, you know, when I was a kid, they got divorced pretty early. I remember a certain phase of time where he left. And, you know, I saw my dad on the weekends, every weekend, but there was this point in my time, I was maybe 4 or 5, and he took a job in another state, Arizona, one of the times when he was out of my life for like a month. And I didn't see him, and I was used to seeing him every weekend. And so I asked him, and I said, why did you choose to do that at that point in my life? This is after asking him, why did you get divorced from my mother? why didn't you work it out? Like, what couldn't you do? You know, why couldn't you try to make it work? Why couldn't you shelter me from all of these negative things that you guys were saying and stuff like that? And, you know, he's come a long way as a man, right? He was a child when this happened. He was early 20s.
Yeah.
And I would not think, this man is 10 years younger than me when he's going through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That anger that I had didn't change regardless of my age or his age. I still had the anger because I'm in kid Austin head, right? I'm going, you hurt me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I asked him this question, and his response was very simply just like, well, sometimes you just need to take a break from things. And I said, take a break from what? Me? Like, your problems? Like, why would you run from it? And I do that. And he's like, no, not like that. He's like, it was about love. It was about his next wife that he was with. They were having a hard time, and he just needed to take a break from reality to regather himself as a man and come back with a clear head space. So he was in turn running from his problems, and I called him out on that. You know, in that moment, I'm like, did you ever think about the effect that would have on my life as a child? And I'm 32, like, I got a beautiful family. I'm okay. I'm well off. This man didn't despair me in any way, but I asked him that, and I'm like thinking now, I look back at that and I'm like, you didn't need to do that, Austin. You know what I mean? But there's some emotional door that I had to close. And asking him those questions helped me close that. I just think that I wish I would have done it probably off camera. But it brought up a lot of emotion, bro.
How did you come to that conclusion afterwards? The fact that you wish, do you wish you wouldn't have done it? Do you wish you wouldn't have published it? I mean, because you didn't have to.
No. I don't not, it is what it is. And I think that it's hard to gauge on whether or not that emotional closure would have happened if it weren't for me having that setting. You know what I mean? To sit him down, phoneless, computerless, whatever, and having that one-to-one like we are now.
Right.
You know, men, father, son, don't just do this.
Right.
So it created a space, and I can't say that I wouldn't change anything, but I think what I struggle with is, again, somebody without context of childhood, and it was like let me rephrase this. It was more of a moment of maturity for me, I think, as a man, and understanding like some perspective. And I had anger, but it was not necessarily at those issues. I was angry with everything else going out in my life, and I wanted somebody to take it out on. And so he ended up being that punching bag. We had issues in the past, and it was just an easy solution for that. And so, I don't know. I just closed that door for me during that time, during that conversation, which was just more the pity portion of my life, you know, like, I'm okay. I'm good. I turned out okay. Again, I'm very well off for a man of today's day and age. And I'm very lucky and happy with my family and opportunity and everything that where I'm at. But for some reason there was a childhood pity portion that I was holding on to, I think. And I still do to some extent with my mother, but.
Did anybody else give you that feedback though from that episode, or was it this just from you?
Just totally me, bro. 100%. All me. I rewatched it and I had guilt. Like a guilt emotion. Like, why did I?
Have you gone back again and rewatched it? Here's the reason I'm asking, is because I've had these experiences in my life where I'm in the moment. I mean, we could even use that example of my son with the phone and everything else. I feel like I do what I need to do in the moment. And then maybe I realize, well, was that based in emotion? Was that truth? Was it me being as authentic as possible? And then I go back and I relive it and I'm like, wait, was it that, or was I pulling this out? Now, it's a little different when you're just reliving it in your mind versus you have video evidence of it, right?
Yeah, I physically rewatched it.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, though, I think it also depends on your emotional state when you rewatch it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you like, for me, myself, like, maybe I'm on this side and then I rewatch it and I'm on this side. And then maybe there's something in the between. I don't know.
The guilt just came from, again, what I felt was I was putting this man in a corner and challenging his decisions that he made when he was younger as a father to me.
Why do you have guilt over that?
Because I don't want people that I care about to. I don't think it's my place to do that with your dad. I don't mind doing that with somebody else. You know what I mean? But doing that with your father is especially difficult.
Yeah, it is. Do you feel like is there a permission element? Like he didn't give you permission
to
do that?
He did. But I also think I know who I based off of his responses on some of them, he was kind of like caught off guard, like I don't know why you're asking it that way, but yes. And in the moment, I remember like wanting him to feel like an asshole a little bit. And that's where I think I look back on it now. And I'm like, well, you could have probably framed that a little different. But when you have emotion and you're angry with someone, those things come out, But again,
you also didn't have the luxury of time because you're sitting there, you're in front of cameras. Mm-hmm.
Can I be sensitive and ask you every single question?
Well, there's that, but there's also just the element of maybe during a normal conversation, I need to like get up and go take a moment or go on a walk or come back to this conversation later or something else. Like you're in it and you're either going to have the conversation or you're not going to have the conversation.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, bro. It is interesting. I don't know. I in our relationship is still odd to this day. It's not ever perfect. Not perfect. Yeah, that's a bad word. I mean, it's not.
What do you want?
Where I want it to be. I don't know. I mean, I wish my parents would give more effort to be there for my children and me, But I went through a phase of my life where I didn't speak with them for nearly 3 years. After my son was born, there was some big issues, and that's a long story to get into, but I basically had to shut everyone out, and I chose to do that for the betterment of my family, and not at anybody's will. There's a commonality here that comes in when you have kids. A lot of times there's one family that is chosen to spend more time with. That wasn't the case with this. But long story short, in doing that was me running from my own problems and wanting to address the realities of my own issues that I had. But I look back on those moments now, and there's still a lot of things. I damaged our relationship basically by doing that. Both with my mother, with my father, with a lot of my family outside of that. So I became very much I'm going to handle it myself, I guess. And
how old were you when you did that?
This wasn't that long ago. My first son was born, so I was 27, 26.
What do you feel pushed you that way? To do that, to just take the space and not speak with them?
Well, again, we can get into that. But
was it your son being born?
No, so my mother moved away when I was a kid and chose to live halfway across the country. She lives in Illinois. And, when my first son was born, my mother has always been a very controlling, I want to be in the midst of everything of your life. And she's very old school. Both my parents are. They wanted to be there at the hospital when my son was born. My dad asked to cut the cord, jokingly, I think, but like too far, you know what I mean? In your space.
Right.
That's how they are. They don't think that that's abnormal. You know what I mean? And my wife at the time, was going through the questioning of whether or not she really was ready to have a child. This was something that we dealt with behind closed doors, that she's the most amazing mother. We are going to have more kids. We are working to have more children and have, this is just a very uncertain part of our life, right? She was dealing with depression, anxiety, and I'm trying to be the man and be there for my family, support my family through everything, right? Not allowed to have problems. You're not allowed to.
Of course not. You're a man.
To be vulnerable. You're not allowed to to confide, fail, any of it. And
but beyond that, then you have a mom who you feel maybe abandoned by.
Oh, for sure.
Since you're ever a little kid who now wants to be overly involved.
Yeah.
When you're like, well, where the fuck have you been?
Where are you, bro?
Years?
Yeah, exactly. So there's all these things happening, right? And I had.
And at the same time, your wife is like sensitive and wanting to stay private, which totally.
Her parents weren't there either. There was no. It was both sides, right? Man. Give us privacy. Let us have our moment. They're just overbearing, to put it simple. I had a really private conversation with both of them saying, hey, I know this is what you want, and I know this is your day to be grandparents too, right? But I need you to understand that I don't want anyone there. We want to have this moment for us. And that's important to my wife and her strength and her ability to give birth. I think I wanted to respect all of that. And I didn't really give a shit, to be honest with you. It's no different. I'm having a kid. I don't give a fuck about anything else, man. I would just want to see the thing and be there for my wife and live in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I asked them respectfully, and they both got really angry with me when I said that, of course. And it kind of took away from my expectation of having a child. Like, people were supposed to be happy for you. I want a family. I want people to be proud that I'm bringing this human into this life, and I'm married and I have a family and I'm doing the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the day comes.
But it's not about you.
Right, it's not. The day comes, and Devin has a terrible labor. And after giving birth, we were about 48 hours into this at this point. And Cooper comes, and she had all sorts of birth complications and was bleeding out. Her whole right leg was numb because they fucked up the epidural. And this will come into the story later on. But I called my mother first, and I said, hey, I just want to let you know your grandson's here. His name's Cooper James, and he was this much, this weight. And I said, I just want to tell you congratulations. And I said, could you just do me one favor and not let anybody know or say anything? I'd really love to be able to make the calls to the family and do the same thing I'm doing with you right now. No problem. Sounds good. Before I could even make the second phone call, half my family was already notified.
Oh, fuck, dude.
And people were calling me. Okay, whatever. That was quick. I called my father next. I'll never forget this moment. This is probably one of the more interesting moments where really, really kind of like shut me off to the, wow, this is really happening right now. I called my father, and my stepmom answered the phone, and she goes, I go, hey, I'm calling to let you guys know Cooper's here. He's healthy. Everyone's good. It was a crazy birth, you guys are welcome to come see him if you'd like, or I can, call you. And she goes, I'm going to pretend that I didn't get this call. And I'm just going to tell your dad that he called you. You called. And I was like,
what?
Okay. Was somebody mad at me? Did I do something wrong? What is this? Right?
Did you ask her that, or you just thinking?
No, I was in shock, bro. I was like,
yeah,
here we go.
Right.
Let's take the entire amazing moment that I'm supposed to have right now, and now it is going to be all about them and what they didn't get. Great. So I think she meant that I didn't want to be the one to know that your son was born before your father. Like, you shouldn't have told me. You should have said, hey, can I talk to dad? Type thing. I didn't think that she wanted to take that from him. But in my opinion, you guys are both family. How was I supposed to know that she was like, he's in the shower, but whatever. It's so silly, right?
Yeah.
Just, okay, yeah, I'll call him. Hey, call your son. Be excited, something, right?
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so that then called my dad, and
that's what she said, I'll pretend this call never happened. It's such
I'll never forget the words, bro.
That's such a weird wording of that. I mean, it'd be one thing if it's like, well, I'm sure he'd love to hear this news in person. Like, can you call him back? Okay. But I'm going to pretend like I didn't get the call.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that.
It was very unsettling and hurtful. And I'm sure that, again, I don't know that. I believe that we've spoken about this since then. But so much has happened. I've blacked a lot of it out. But then after this happened, right?
But that's really wise for you to say, because you don't know her intentions. Maybe those were her intentions. I don't know.
I don't think that there was ill intentions. I think that they were already angry with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the heat of the moment of what was happening right there, she was probably like, wow, okay, so this really is happening. You know what I mean? And it was more of a shock for her too.
Like you are actually going to have a baby and not have us be there.
Yes,
and we're
exactly.
not going to be in the hospital. And
Exactly.
You're not going to let your dad cut the cord. And, okay, I get it. So you really don't want us there.
Yeah, it was like a moment of,
isn't that amazing?
Oh, this is happening.
Isn't that amazing how our filters, we can always change it into whatever we want it to be. And if we just want to be a selfish bastard about it, we can, instead of being excited.
Yeah.
Whether it's a friend that is doing something that's congratulatory or a family member or anything else, it's like that insecurity. There's some sort of insecurity that popped up for her, guaranteed.
Yeah,
Some sort of insecurity that's like, oh, this fucker doesn't even want me in his life. And doesn't even care that we're around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting situation. And yeah, there probably was a lot of that, bro. But I then talked to my dad shortly thereafter, had asked them if they wanted to come. They said, no, we don't want to come to the hospital. We'll wait till you bring him home. 2 weeks go by. And at this point, my wife can't walk still. So we get him home, and I don't think it was 2 weeks. It was a couple days after we got home. We invited him over, and her entire right side was numb, so she couldn't walk. And it stayed this way for 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah, I lost my job. Yeah. So 6 months into the birth of my first child, I lose my family, I lose my job. Oh, I'm sorry. I exile my family, lost my job, not sure how to be a dad yet, still figuring it out. My wife can't walk, and we still, like, there's so many things, bro. And so I chose to abandon my family at that point. After the first interaction, they met my son. My dad came, held Cooper for a little bit.
Can I pause you for a second? Because I just want to go back to that for a second. So what's your identity at this point in your life? Are you a failure? Are you,
like, how am I feeling in this moment?
Living in shame?
I'll get there.
Okay.
So we leave the hospital, right? And I'm at this point, I'm like just loving the fact that I'm a dad. I'm just trying to be there for my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was so uncertain that this was ever going to happen to me from the get-go. This is the greatest moment of my fucking life, bro. Like, I am a dad, and this thing is so fucking cool, right? He's the coolest thing in the world. So I love him so much. Fuck. I'm so lucky. Oh, God, they're so cool. Fuck, hang on. Sorry. They're amazing, bro.
Have as much time as you want, brother. I love my kids more than anything.
Yeah, God, they're so cool. You ever have those moments, bro, where you're just like, fuck, I'm so lucky, man?
Absolutely. I
haven't thought about the day that he was born in so long. Oh yeah. So we leave the hospital, right? And I just have this amazing moment of just like being a dad, and it's the greatest thing in the fucking world. Still unsure, like, what I'm gonna do, or how to interact with your family outside of that. But we get home, things are we're figuring it out. Anyway, trying to figure things out as a dad. We're doing the coffee shop thing, and this basically what happens is with my family is it kind of just goes on too long without me reinitiating anything. So I basically just came to a point where, like, I just avoided everybody. I was angry, didn't want to talk to anyone. My mom lives halfway across the world anyway. She's easy to block and not speak to. Same thing with my father. At this point, they had kind of made a few attempts to, like, reinitiate things within my life. But I was pretty reluctant to that. I would just kind of shut out.
Block those attempps?
Yeah, every time.
Okay.
And there was one point I remember.
Do you feel like that was you, or do you feel like the attempts were legit and you just didn't care, or do you feel like you're at a
part
point
of me is like, there was no way you were breaking this wall right now. I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, I'm not letting you in.
Mm-hmm.
You broke it, and I'm pretty stubborn to that extent, I think, and I think I was. Looking back, like, what would I do with my kids? I think I would never have let it be in this position. You know what I mean? I wouldn't. And if it were to get there, like, I would just show my love and support. I cannot fathom how it ended up there in the first place. I'll just say that. I don't get it.
I can't either as a dad.
Yeah, it was rough, right? And so anyway, the moral of this is I mean, there's so many little instances and things that happen in between this, but in an effort to summarize it, it was basically I abandoned my family at that point, and I wanted nothing to do with them. And any attempt that they tried to make to come back into my life, I was pretty angry and just chose not to. And then I want to say this started raising questions for me about, am I being stubborn? And the weight of the hate that I had for them at that moment. I mean, hate's a strong word. The frustration I had with the situation. And I had a lot of anger built up and resentment towards the past. So I think about when Cooper turned to 3 or 4, I started questioning whether or not I was taking it too far. Was I just holding on to these things, and that weight of me not having my family in my life started to hold on or just become, it was just lonely, I guess. You know what I mean? Not that my family that I do have is not enough, but it was just like, I'm now choosing to hold on to this anger and this hatred towards these people for something that they've done a long time ago. What is easier for me as a human being, as a man? You know, with everything, is forgiveness going to lift that weight? Do I forgive them? We had conversations in between this probably 3-year span, like physical face-to-faces, probably 2 or 3 of those, where I explained why I was angry. And each conversation kind of just was left open-ended. No accountability for anything. And I think I wanted that. Like, I wanted them to tell me that they hurt me. But all I was getting was, I don't understand why you abandoned me. Why did you block me? Why couldn't we work? You know what I mean? There's just no accountability.
Yeah.
And I wanted that, right? So I'm trying to understand where there's just so much, bro, to this point of my life.
Do you feel like at this point you were taking responsibility for your actions?
No.
So neither. They're not taking responsibility. You're not taking responsibility.
At this point, I didn't feel like I needed to. I was like, I'm the kid. You're supposed to love me no matter what.
Okay.
You're supposed to be there for me no matter what.
Do you feel the same way now? Looking back on it?
I feel like I am in control of I was in control the entire time. And regardless of how I feel about what I would do with my kids, that is not, I cannot expect other people to do that.
Did you
To answer that question?
Yeah. This is maybe, I don't know if this is a similar line that we're going on or not, but do you feel like you wanted to control, how strongly do you feel like you wanted to control the narrative of you when you were going through this? Like, did you care what mom thought of you, what dad thought of you, what the rest of family thought of you, what everybody else thought of you? Or was it just like, fuck it, I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about me?
At the beginning, all I cared about was them, their opinions.
Okay.
I mean,
but now we're 3 years in.
I wanted them to be excited about it. Yeah, but 3 years in, I didn't give a shit. I had fully, and still to this day, like, this is why I think it's so hard to reel those relationships back, because bro, there were times where I was like, I could give a shit if they died. Yeah, like, that's how I felt. It's as fucked up as that sounds. Like, I had fully disassociated and accepted that they were no longer a part of me or my life. I had went there, and I feel like that's the only way I could move on, was to go like, this relationship is dying. I'm never going to see them again. What's the point of any of this, right? And then I started to realize, like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to never speak to them again. And do I want that when they die? You know what I mean? I'd had that talk, and stubborn Austin is going, you know what? You don't need them. You can do it, bro. You're fine. You don't need anyone. And that's fine, but that's lonely.
Mm-hmm.
That's really lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make a decision on whether or not I could live with that separation from them for the rest of my life. And I was lying to myself and saying, yeah, I can, but I can't. And even though our relationship isn't perfect now, I have truthfully come to this point in my life after everything I've been through over the last 5 to 6 years with my family, with business, with struggle, with depression, alcohol, all of that shit, that I want to just love, bro. I don't want to hate anyone. I don't want to have any animosity towards anyone. And I forgive anyone who has ever hurt me or anyone, any trauma, any of that shit. Like, I don't want any of that weight. I just want to be free of that, because that was affecting who I was as a person. Mm-hmm. So that took a lot of work. But
well, yeah. And so let's come back to that for a second, because what you're saying, I think, is really, really key as well, where saying or thinking I don't care, I think there's two versions of that,
right?
In my mind. There's I don't care because I don't care about you at all, because I don't care if you die.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what happens in your life. You mean nothing to me.
Right.
There's no love. I'm just resentful, angry, hurt, upset. And then there's I don't care because I'm so solid and authentic and strong in and of myself. That I don't need your validation.
Yeah.
I don't need you to have a version of your story of me that I need you to have. Like, I don't need to control that narrative. You can just think whatever you want of me. And I hear you saying that it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like you cared too much. Then you went all the way to the other side of like, I don't care, do whatever you want, die, right. Or I don't care what happens to your life, to now, how did you slowly start coming back to that third, like, I'm just confident in myself. I love my family. We're good here. So you believe whatever you want to believe.
Well, I think that we all process things like trauma, differently. Like there's certain trauma and grief. How you go through that process is very similar in a lot of things, right? You have the certain steps where you have this shock sort of thing, which is usually where, like, I don't understand what's happening. And then you have the sadness portion of things where you really, really dive into, where a lot of people dive into depression. And then you have this sort of like a kind of crawling out of it phase, like acceptance phase, like this is what's happening. And I think that's usually where depression sets in. People are like, well, this is it. Okay, great. And then you kind of have this like, well, what now?
Right.
What now? Now I've gone through all of these phases of emotion. What am I going to do about it now? And I think that's what I was going through, is this phases of trauma.
What do you mean by what now? Like, what now for you, or what now for the relationship?
Well, like it was like, this can't be it. You know what I mean? Like, why? I'm really never going to like speak to my father again. I'm never going to speak to my mother again. Is that really what I want? And I mean, there's so many factors, I think, that led me to that point. I don't know that I could specifically pinpoint one thing or one time or an aha moment per se that kind of led me to this. I'm content with what I have, but I don't want to hate anyone. I don't want any anger. And I think
it also sounded like you got to that point where you're actually taking responsibility.
Well,
for what you can take responsibility
for sure. And well, it's just, was it worth it? Like, when you think about relationships, man, and something that is more powerful than anything is our ability to have those relationships, our ability to live, our ability to be here right fucking now, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about, like, I think I went to places in my head where I'm going like, what is life, man? What is the definition of any of this? And what's legacy, right? What do I want to leave here on earth? Do I want these people dying with this thought that they abandoned and lost a relationship with their child, whether they give a shit about that or not? Do I want that weight? Do I want to put that weight on them? And so I felt sort of like I have this responsibility now with my time on earth to amend these things. And I don't know where that came from. I think a lot of it came from the I didn't want to be in pain anymore. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of pain associated with choosing to hate or dislike people. Like it's easier, much easier to sit and wallow in your pain and your pity. It is hard to forgive. Forgiveness is hard, but there's a freeing at the end of that, right? At the end of that pain, at the end of that struggle that you go through in trying to forgive and move on with people. And I was choosing the easy route. I was choosing the route of like, I'm going to wallow in this pain. I'm going to feel bad for myself. And, you know, the pain it just became too much. It started to affect my relationship. It started to affect my marriage. You know, I remember a certain...
Not everybody sees that though.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, I know for myself, I've gone through periods of my life where I'm drinking the poison. I'm not even realizing that I'm drinking the poison.
Yeah. Right. That's a great point, man. That's a great point.
So
I didn't either.
You still had this awareness at some point, like, oh man, like the only thing that the bitterness and anger and resentment is doing is hurting me. It's not hurting the other person.
It doesn't. Yeah. 100%. It's completely internal. Right. And that's, I was hoping for somebody, I think, in this situation of abandonment, we can call it, where I chose to abandon my problems and I chose to run away from them. I was hoping that somebody was going to come to me and this is where this interesting wall came up, because like I said, I wasn't willing to let anybody in. But on the other hand of things, I was expecting somebody to come to me and fix the fucking problem.
Yeah.
But I'm not opening that door for you. So it's a dead end. Right? And if you don't allow forgiveness in at any point, or you're not even opening that door, it is never going to come, bro. You're just going to sit in pain. And that's what I was doing. I was just sitting in it like, I'm better than you. Fuck you. I don't need you. You know what I mean? Like, but the reality of the situation was the only one getting in the way of me healing from the situation was myself, not anybody else.
Right.
So I don't know what situation pinpointed that. I think a lot of it was a culmination of pain and a lot of long nights, sleepless nights. I mean, bro, I'm building a business at this time. I'm selling I lost homes, jobs, money. I'm trying to like be 20 billion things, right? And so I don't think it happened on purpose, but I do believe that, you know, upon the culmination of many things, that's the path that led me down to forgiveness, was just truthfully the long nights and wondering, can I set with this? You know? So I just started to, as hard as it was, I started to have conversations and open the doors of truthfully forgiving. And there's people that still haven't forgiven me on the other side of things. You know, and I do take responsibility for allowing my relationships not to be mended for as long as they did, because I know I hurt a lot of people in that. There's a lot of baggage that gets carried on with that. You know what I mean? Family members and people that weren't even associated.
Yeah, for sure. You can take that responsibility, but you can't take the responsibility for them. Right?
No.
They can choose whatever they want to do. You know,
I
have not. We've been talking for a couple of hours, and I'm going to tell you something right now.
Yeah, tell me.
I wore this shirt specifically for you today. Okay?
Yeah.
So this shirt, I'll just give you a brief. When I was going through the worst time of my life, when everything in my life was failing, I printed this shirt. So can you read the front?
The version of me you created in your mind is not my responsibility. I like that.
Going back to that narrative, right?
Yeah.
Where, you said a lot of really good things today. And one of the things that just sticks out to me a lot is just this transition to, dude, why is this? Because we're going to get to failure here in a second, because I definitely want to talk to you about this. But why is it that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, for my life, I have to be in the place where it feels like I'm failing at everything before I finally get to a point where I'm like, okay, now I can take responsibility for my stuff. Now I'm really understanding, okay, what can I take responsibility for? How can I move forward? And how can I just also let go of everybody else that has whatever view of me that they have?
I think a lot of it is ego for me.
Is it just because that's an ego crushing experience?
I think I don't, and I mean, accepting failure, depending on what it is. I mean, these specific things that you and I are talking about that we fail upon are often what we feel are some of the most impactful things in life. We're not
Right.
talking about failing a fucking driver's test.
Yeah.
You're failing at being a good husband, a parent to your child, or business, things that we dive our hearts and our souls into. So I think a lot of it is truthfully
Providing for yourself, providing for your family, providing
everything,
absolutely,
right?
your mission in life.
But I think just succumbing to the reality that the only one, I want to answer this good for you and clear, but I do believe that it's all rooted in our own versions and expectations of ourselves, which is mostly ego, right? We have this picture of who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, and when we don't meet that, failure cannot happen, right? So, to your question, how do we introduce failure into our lives without letting it get to the point of no return, which is what I want to call just like, you can no longer deny it, right? You can't deny the fact that you have failed, even if 7 people have yelled it or screamed it in your face. You're like, nope, not there. It's stubbornness and ego and willingness to not accept and face reality. I don't know.
So let's go to failure for a second, because you started a podcast called the Failure Podcast.
Yeah, I did.
That no longer exists.
It's a failure.
Do you feel like it's a failure?
Oh man, hell no. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started that show because
Now, but that being said,
yeah,
and I want to hear why you started it.
Sure.
But you didn't start it to end it.
no.
So what's really interesting about the definition of failure is
Right.
that would by definition be failure, which I think is really fascinating, because most people think failure and it's like a shaming, like you chose to
finish
shut
line.
it down, right? It wasn't like
Yeah,
all these things outside of your control,
right.
right? You chose that. So by most definitions of failure, it would not be a failure because you chose to shut it down. But that being said, the definition of failure is just saying, well, I'm trying to accomplish this thing. I didn't accomplish it. Well, you accomplished it, but you didn't accomplish the ultimate thing. So
Yeah. I think I started that show because of a failure, because of what I thought was a failure.
which was what?
A massive business loss. And I was having conversations with people like you and I are right now, off camera, and just reaching a point where I was like, dude, this is so good not to share. This is too much valuable information that I wish I could consume in this. And so I started to do that, right? And the show grew and culminated into so much of what we consider to be a self-help show at this point, with people sharing their traumas, their struggles, men, women, whatever that be, similar to what you do here. And we talk about that, and you just have moments, and it's real and it's raw and it's beautiful. But the show now, I stopped doing it, and we can get into more of the why, but it is kind of an oxymoron, because I don't think that it's a failure
I wouldn't say it is
at all. In fact, if it is a failure, there's nothing wrong with that, because a lot of people have this notion that failure, again, is the end. It is the finish line.
Yeah.
And that is not true. At the opposite end of failure is growth. It is a new beginning, and it may be something ending in your life, but there's always then a what now, right? It is so that was
I think what you said is good, though, because I think that's how most people think of failure. You even hear the word, you're like, oh, that's the ultimate end. But that's not what failure means.
No. I mean, by definition, I don't know what the definition is, to be honest with you. I'd have to look it up, and I'm sure that some English major would be like, you're wrong. But how we view it, I think, is
the first definition of failure is lack of success.
Okay.
From the dictionary.
Yeah.
The second definition of failure, this is off the top of my head, but I've said it a few times. The second definition of failure basically says that you didn't accomplish an intended goal or result.
Sure. Yeah.
Which means by that definition, and somebody's going to leave some comment that I didn't get it exactly right, but that's basically what it says.
Sure.
By that definition, you know what that means?
What?
That means that I won't put you in this bucket, maybe you'll disagree. I fail every single day of my life because I have a specific expected result or goal every single day of my life that I fail. Like, here's an example. By this definition, it means that if I walk across the room right now and I trip, that's a failure.
Yeah, because you're trying to walk across the room and
because my intention was just to walk across the room.
Right.
But that's not how people think of it. But that's what the word means. And I just feel like if we actually went by the definition of what the word means, there'd be a lot less stigma about failure. Maybe we'd be more open to it.
I think most when people are afraid of failure, it is met usually with the need for validation and ego, which you and I have had conversations on this with in the past. And I feel like so much of this journey or whatever you want to call it is because of my ego. Like I wanted people to, I don't know if that's the right thing. I just feel like I learned a lot about myself in the process of the show. So nothing that cannot be a failure to me. You know, I don't know what I expected when I started it, but
why'd you end it?
I ended the show because I mean, truthfully, I think I'm taking on way too much right now, and I want to be a better dad, and that show is all consuming. I mean, I was spending 60 to 80 hours a week, maybe not that much, probably 50 to 60 hours a week editing, and with the post-production of the show along with guest hunting. And it just became everything, right? My identity is that. And I also don't like...
On top of running another business, on top of being a dad.
Right, providing context here. I also am a business owner. I have 3 coffee shops, and trying to be a father and do everything in between that is very difficult. But I mean, I did it for 2 years straight. You know, never missed. I think there was one stint I went 4 weeks without posting, and that was around Christmas time. But other than that, I edited every piece of content myself. I put in my 10,000 hours to learn and grow and become what it was. But I think during that process, I gave up a lot, bro. And so I just had to make a choice at this moment. And I don't want to say that it's the end of the show, because I love it. Like, I love conversing, but I think that I'm also understanding that it had control over me, you know, and my life. Like, it was dictating everything, and I don't like things controlling or it felt like another 9 to 5, if that makes sense. And just took everything from me. So I no longer had time with my family. I no longer had time to be a good business owner. And I think with balance in the right time that can be fixed. But I don't know. It's hard to give up too. I love it so much, dude. I didn't want to truthfully do it. But I know that it's the right thing to do. And sometimes the only thing holding me back from wanting to quit the show was the thought that I was going to look like a failure.
Isn't that ironic?
And now I find some power, to be honest with you, which is an interesting word, in sitting in that. And knowing that, like, I don't really care what people think. If they think that the show was a failure, that's fine. But the funny thing is I've got nothing but, like, great response from everybody after doing that. And, you know, you sit in this moment of unhappiness for so long, because I wasn't happy doing all this work on top of everything. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm getting anything but this from, other than just giving up my life to it. And it's not what I want to do. I think to some people they can.
I think that's really interesting. I think the word control is really interesting as well, because most people will be listening to this right now and watching this, and the word addiction is not what they'd be thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I've learned about addiction is that it's when something is all consuming and controlling over you and you can't get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the most obvious example being, you talked about alcohol earlier, talking about alcoholism or drug addiction.
Right.
And the thing that is so all consuming and controlling about it is that you just don't feel like you can stop. Like, I need this to survive. Like, this has to come in. And I just think it's really interesting that you used not the word addiction, that was my word, but you used the word control and all consuming.
It is an addiction, bro. It was an addiction.
Sounds like it.
It was an addiction, and it did have control over me because I felt like, but the funny thing is, there's no one telling me, there's no boss, there's no man
right
or woman looking at me going, you have to do this.
Of course not.
But
or to the level you were doing it, by the way. I mean,
sure.
That's all you. Like,
yeah.
No one.
But I think what I learned throughout the show of talking to all of these people, you being one of them, you know, is that like discomfort is something we should run towards. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the reason why I was just sitting in it is because I was afraid of the ladder. Like, what's the ladder? Am I giving up something? Is this going to fill my ego? You know, my validation piece that I need to be seen and to be heard. You know, why am I really doing any of this? Am I doing it just for me? Am I doing it to help people? Am I doing it? It made me question all those things. But again, discomfort, right? I was afraid of discomfort. And one thing that I've learned throughout this entire show is that we should run to discomfort. We should be embracing discomfort. And so, you know, along that journey, I went through a lot of things the last 2 years. I've been fighting to keep my business alive. I've quit drinking alcohol. You know, I've had mental health scares, you know, all sorts of things. And all of those were really uncomfortable situations that I had to address. But at the other end of that was freedom from myself. And so quitting the show is as odd as it sounds, and not continuing production of something that I poured my life into, has been very freeing, because I'm able to sit in the uncomfortableness and go, that this is how it's supposed to feel right now. That's okay. You are making a massive, massive change in your life.
But that's exactly what you just said is exactly key.
Yeah.
And that's what I found as well. When you can actually sit in whatever it is that's uncomfortable. And we all spend a bunch of time trying to avoid discomfort.
Right.
Everybody does. Doesn't matter if it's alcohol or drugs or shopping or work or whatever, right? Yeah. Fill in the blank. It could be anything. Anything that keeps us from discomfort is the thing that produces the most money in an economy like ours. Think gambling, pornography, alcohol. There's a reason that they all have the same end effect of thinking that we're not going to have to feel whatever this feeling is and go through this uncomfortable time. But what I love about what you're sharing is, bro, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to find a place. And honestly, I sound like an old man right now, but I'm almost 10 years older than you. And honestly, for you to find in your low 30s a place where you can sit in discomfort and realize that that's actually a beautiful thing, and that you don't need to drink it away, and you don't need to fuck it away, and you don't need to drug it away, you don't need to work it away.
It's growth, man.
That's amazing.
It's, you know, another thing that I question too, and I'll play devil's advocate for you here, is something that I toil with often, is this destructive mindset, or am I choosing to destroy things in my life because I'm afraid, because I don't deserve to be successful. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I've toyed with that a lot, you know, because right when things I feel like are
like right when it's about to take off,
right
or
when
right
it's about
as
to do
it's
good,
taking off,
I destroy it. And I don't, and that could have been.
Did you feel that way about the podcast as well?
Yeah. I have massive FOMO still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's part of the discomfort that I feel is the fear of what if I stayed?
Mm-hmm.
What if I kept going? That is uncomfortable to me, holding on to that. But so it's a good challenge for me though. That is not affecting my day to day. It's a good battle. It's a good understanding of patience for me within my life. I need to understand that there's a time and a place for everything, and this is not the right time for you to execute this. This isn't a stubborn Austin. This isn't destructive Austin. This is a wise decision for you to better your mindset and be there for your family and be there for your business, which is funding this podcast, right? I need to think.
Well, this goes to why.
Yes.
Why you're doing it. What's the intention? And then, of course, we all know intention without action is worthless.
Right.
So what is the why?
Yeah.
What's the intention? And then what's the action based on that? And everything I've heard from you, and I read your post, obviously, when you shut it down, and we've had conversations as well, is it's all about, I want to be there for my family. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good. I need to focus on my business. I need to do, right? Like, those are all very, very healthy whys and intentions.
Yeah, bro. I think,
and I'm not just giving you kudos to give you kudos. I'm not like, oh, you've never made any mistakes in that statement. I'm just saying, I think that piece is really, really critical. Because you could do it for a lot of other reasons too. I don't know. To me, I have a hard time believing that you're self-sabotaging with those being your reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The reason I question that is because my family was not like, this is all me. You know what I mean? Truthfully. My wife wasn't nagging at me for doing. She's the most supportive thing in the world.
Got it.
My kids were not like, Daddy.
I can see why that would make you second guess, because it's not like they're all saying, hey, you're a terrible husband, you're a terrible dad.
No one's saying this.
Like,
it's just
everything. Yeah.
I'm just unhappy.
Yeah.
Why the fuck am I unhappy? Why is this not fulfilling me like it was originally?
Well, you know what's interesting about that too is that you had a lot of success in your podcast. You had a lot of really great guests.
Yeah.
You had a lot of followers on social media. Like, I mean, you still do. But like, for all intents and purposes, dude, you've had a lot more success on that podcast than most people do in their podcast.
Yeah. So it's
including
why would I give it up?
No, it's not even that. I mean, yes, that's a good question. But it also just speaks to the unquenchable ego within all of us.
Yeah.
Because by all human standards, was a massive success. You might not think that. You might think, well, it wasn't because this is the standard I was looking at.
Yeah.
And I didn't become Joe Rogan. Therefore, I'm a failure. But all tracking purposes, it was a huge success. Yeah. I have not been in as busy of a season of my life, which I've put myself in right now. This is not anyone else's fault but my own, as I am right now, ever in my working adult life.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many things going on with too many companies, with not as many team members as I need. It's just blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying that for any sort of sympathy or anything else. I've done this all to myself. I didn't need to start a podcast. I didn't need to try to start a media company. I didn't need to start a coaching company. Like, I did all these things myself. I didn't need to like switch my financial planning company. There's, of the 8 billion things going on right now.
Right.
But it's also at a point where, at a certain point, something's probably got to give.
Right.
And it's just, similar to what I just heard you say. Something's got to give at some point. You couldn't keep going. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from what I'm hearing from you, you couldn't keep going for the next 5 years on the path you were going on.
I feel like I know exactly what you're saying. And I'm trying to find comfort in knowing that it's not forever. Like, I think we are similar in ways where we are so stubborn and not wanting to achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. And we're both wise enough to know, like, truthfully, deep down inside, bro, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. But we are so, I say we, I'm not trying to put anything on you, but we are so stubborn in that sense that it's like, even though I know that it'll probably be okay, I'm going to fucking kill myself before I let that happen. And it's like, we don't need to let it get to this self-destructive point before you recognize where that's failure of what you're speaking of is not the end. Like, that doesn't mean that it's forever, right? How long has it taken you to create what you built with your show? You've been doing it for 9 months. You've made progress. You've made growth.
For sure.
What's to say, bro, listen, okay, I'm not at where I want to be, and I know that. But that doesn't mean that I can't set myself up for a better run at it in 6 months.
Also, just given mindset, it's gap or gain mentality. If
Yeah.
you've read that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to look at all the ways that you haven't succeeded what you're wanting to succeed? Or have you looked at, well, where have you come from?
Well, that's hard for me still, bro. I still am too overly.
I'm super critical of myself.
That's just like, I think that there's some benefit to that, to looking at the positive things all of the time. But I think a big problem with that is that we don't sit in the shit. We don't sit in the failure. Like, it's okay. It's not the end. And we, as humans, as collective, when we think about failure traditionally, that is just, it's so uncomfortable. It's so wrong. It's so bad. And it's not. It's like, no one's judging you. No one's telling you to do A, B, or C. And so that's where I said the power mentality, the power that I gained back from saying, you know what, even if to some eyes this thing is really successful, this thing is great, it's grand, it's perfect, you've done all these fucking things, why would you give it up? Well, because I don't feel like I had any control over myself anymore. And you similarly are saying, I don't know that I have control of any of this shit anymore. I'm just fucking trying to survive, bro. Make it day for day and not miss an episode and put out great content and do all these things and put all this fucking pressure on yourself to be this amazingly outstanding, human being who does not veer from the path of your goals. And it's like, you know what? Fuck it, bro. Yeah. The path might not be what you set it out to be, but that's okay.
I agree.
It's okay.
I agree. There's a lot of freedom in giving that up, Austin.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you're getting to that. Like, I continually get closer to that point of being able to give more up, and I'm glad that you are as well.
I think you are there, bro. You are there. You're so there.
Well,
you're just in a different zone than me, man. You got different shit going on.
I appreciate that. I think, again, if I look at where I want to be, I'm not there.
Right.
Compared to where I was when I was your age, to pull an old man comment right now.
Sure.
Oh my God, 100 times better. Because frankly, like, even today, like, having technology issues with cameras and microphones and everything else, dude, that used to just throw me over the edge. Like, I don't know. I don't probably look to you like I'm thrown over the edge, because at the end of the day, and this is true for me, man, like, it's that whole modality of like, do the tough shit and just do it and just sit with the fact that it's uncomfortable. Because the more you do that,
right, the
less the tough shit is tough shit anymore. I was listening to one of my favorite people on the planet, which is Tony Robbins, the goat of all goats.
Yep.
And he was talking about this experience about how he was having this conversation with a friend a long time ago, and they were talking about, let me back up. He was having this conversation with a friend, and he was saying, yeah, it just seems like my life's going pretty easy, and like there's just not a lot going on, etc. And his friend just kind of looked at him and was like, is that the case? Or is it just that it's just not tough for you anymore? And he thought about it. He's like, oh yeah, it's just not as tough for me anymore. Because when you go through the tough shit and you start failing, and you fail and fail and fail and fail, after you've done that a few times, at least for me, I'm like, fuck it. It doesn't even it doesn't even faze me anymore.
Right.
Like, especially when you fail on big stuff, dude. Like, I failed a marriage, I failed relationships, I failed businesses, I failed financially. When you go through all that stuff and like a camera doesn't work, it's like,
yeah,
all right.
I mean, it doesn't make it easier. It's still frustrating, but I think
frustrating.
To your point, the worst feeling that you felt is the worst feeling that you felt, right? And pain is not linear for everyone, right? So, something, again, to feed into what you just said, something that I've learned as well is like, all pain is relative to you and what you've been through, right? So the worst thing that you've been through is the worst thing, is maybe not the worst thing that somebody else has been through, right? But your worst things, no matter of the severity of them, are still the worst things.
100%.
Right? So
I'm going to tell you a way that I was called out on this a while ago, just to show you another example of me failing. I was having this conversation with a guest on my podcast, and I was basically kind of flippantly being like, man, I just hate the fact that people throw around the word trauma all the time.
Sure.
And there's still a part of me that does hate that, because some people's definition of trauma, I'm like, I don't know. Can we collectively agree that like you slipping on a puddle is not trauma? Like, you know, it gets really, really extreme.
Absolutely.
Especially in today's world where everybody's triggered for some reason, one or the other. We were just talking about one example of that earlier today, right? But I was talking to a psychologist, and they were saying, yeah, that's true. However, who am I to say that that was or was not traumatic to that person? And that really just had me think about that for a second. I was like, you're right. Because if somebody said something really mean to them, I don't know what's inside of them or their story on why that was traumatic to them. And how dare I say that was not traumatic to them, but like if something really bad happened was traumatic to them. And if we remove the word trauma for a second, I agree with everything that you just said. And I think it was beautiful, because my pain is my pain. Your pain is your pain. And I know for myself, I will often diminish my pain because I'm like, it's not that big of a deal, or diminish my trauma because it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Like I often say, and I say this to my kids too, like we live in a beautiful house in a beautiful area. We have enough money for everything we need and pretty much everything we want. I don't have bombs dropping on my house. I don't have to worry about, you know, a friend or spouse getting raped or somebody getting killed or somebody whatever, right? Like I'm not living in a war zone. There's all these things. So I should just be eternally grateful, which I am. And at the same time though, if I take that too far, then I invalidate any experience that I have that actually is really difficult, being like, well, yeah, but it's not as difficult as that person. Therefore your experience doesn't matter. And I know for myself, because I have a really high standard and I like to be critical of myself, sometimes I'll do that. And that's not a healthy place to live either.
Yeah.
Because then you can't sit in that discomfort and realize like, well, what is it about this experience that's actually so uncomfortable for me, so that I can sit with it and I can learn and I can grow into the man I want to be.
Yeah. I think there's a few things too, like comparing pain is like, I mean, comparing anybody's life situations to your own is only hindering your ability to grow. You know, you cannot live in, but that's habitual to some extent. I think we all do that. There's a lot of, keeping up with the Joneses per se, and wanting to be and do the next greatest thing. We were just talking about this with the podcast, right? Like, who did I view myself, and who do I want to be like, you know, versus the tier just kind of goes down depending on where you're at in the level, right? But there's always a want or need for more. That's another thing too. But yeah, bro, I think there's just a lot more beauty and discomfort than we think. Pain is relative, and truthfully, like failure is not the end of anything. It's the beginning of a new adventure.
I'll tell you what. I haven't told you this yet. After learning about why you shut down the podcast, obviously I learned about it, like we talked about it a little bit, then you posted it online, then we talked about it a little bit more. But the one thing I haven't told you yet is that I garnered a tremendous amount of respect for you when you did that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Because at least from where I'm sitting, you did it for good reasons. You did it for bringing your family together. You did it for going to a place where some of us couldn't control not going. Like, you want to keep your family together. You want to keep your marriage together. You want to make sure that these things work. And I know as well, getting sucked into the podcast / social media / followers / who likes me / validation vortex, I know that was a difficult decision for you.
Bro, thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, for sure. But like I said, that's cool, man. Thanks for sharing that with me. I mean, that's nice to hear. Even though, like, yeah, dude, it is hard. I'm for sure struggling with it, but I think like I said, I just try to find comfort in knowing that there is there's more on the horizon, you know, or maybe this will lead me to another path that is great things. But I need to hunt for, or I need to stop looking in the wrong places for this type of validation. You know what I mean? I need to do something for.
Easier said than done, brother.
It is hard. It is hard for sure. Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever master that, you know, but we're constantly learning and growing, and that's I think the point of life, right? Is to continue to want to learn and be curious, not just about things outside of your life, but or not just about yourself or outside of things, but be curious about yourself too. Just not overcritical like you and I.
That's where curiosity comes in. It's impossible. One thing I've learned when I used to be in therapy is something my therapist said to me a long time ago, and that was, his encouragement to me was always to be curious about what's going on and why it's going on. And what I learned through that experience is that you can't shame yourself if you're being curious. There's no shame in that. It's just observing.
Yeah.
Why are you feeling this way? What's going on? Etc.
I want to make the opposite. Do compliments make you uncomfortable? So I have come to know after being on the show and recording so many episodes that even outside of it, compliments to me, similar to what you just did, right? Saying that you gained a massive amount of respect for me for making that decision. I don't know why it has always made me uncomfortable to receive a compliment, as if like I don't deserve a compliment. Not saying that did just do that for me. That was really nice of you, and I didn't feel that way. So growth, sick. But like in the past, bro, like people complimenting me on things, I'm like, what do I do? How do I respond? That's like my biggest things. How do I respond? Like, do I need to say thank you, and then like what next? You know what I mean? You ever do that?
Yeah. So, and I also I realized I was analytical in the way I answered your question. So they used to make me uncomfortable, for sure. Now they don't make me uncomfortable, but I still sometimes just reject them.
Yeah.
So I'm not uncomfortable necessarily. Right. Like if you say, hey, whatever, I'm just like, yeah, but.
That's always my response to that is, yeah.
But.
Why? Well,
like I appreciate you saying that way, but I'm not really.
Yeah. Because I feel like maybe it's feeding that ego thing that I'm trying to rid myself of. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I don't know how, bro. It's so interesting because I don't think, like, I do care a lot about people, and we sort of talked about this on our episode that we did on my show, which was the whole like sociopath type of feeling that I get with relationships. But the ego thing is like, I just never knew that I really had that big of an ego until I started like looking around and like how I interact with people and what I say to people and how I say it and how I, put myself out there. Like, I don't know. It's almost like an embarrassing type of thing.
Well, let me encourage you with something. First of all, ego is healthy.
Right.
Keep using the word ego. And I know what you mean. You mean some sort of inflated, unhealthy,
like I got a big head.
Ego.
I'm the greatest thing in the fucking world.
Narcissist or whatever, right? Like that ego. I get that. But I encourage you with your language, be careful even when you say that, because when you say ego, what you're automatically telling yourself is that ego is actually unhealthy.
Sure. Yeah. I have looked at it from a really unhealthy perspective.
And ego is healthy.
How should I change? How should I view it?
I mean, you could say something as simple as unhealthy ego or unhealthy self-view.
So matching the word, when I'm describing it with some type of
you could do that, or what you could do instead of calling it ego is call it what it actually is,
which is what?
Insecurity.
Yeah. Truth.
All unhealthy ego comes out of insecurity.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. What do you think, if you could portray this on me for a second, what do you think I'm insecure about?
You want me to answer that question? Not being enough.
Okay.
In and of yourself.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me if if there's maybe some abandonment stuff still from you as a kid that you haven't worked through. Sounds like you've worked through some of it. There's probably other stuff that you haven't worked through.
Mm-hmm.
You have a big heart for people. You care about people. You're very empathetic. Even though sometimes you joke about not being that way.
Yeah.
As an example.
What I just said.
With that, or when you joke to people that like, you're not going to get a text back from me unless you're dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've said that before.
Right.
I think that's a way of maybe shielding that a little bit.
That is.
Because it's also, you don't want to let people down.
Yeah. That's such an interesting topic too, the not responding thing. But I've realized it's a lot of the fight or flight mentality. Like if something's not on fire, then it doesn't even draw my attention anymore.
And part of that's by design.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur like me. You kind of have
it's supposed to shut off.
Focus on the fires.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you kind of have to.
Bro. That's wild. Yeah. Good job. I like that. It's recognizable in my brain within the past.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah. Appreciate
Thanks
you
for being here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is fun.
A good conversation.
Yeah. We do have some good combos, bro.
We do.
Yeah.
It's good.
We got to keep it going.
I love it. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.